Hi, good evening. Today is January 2nd, 2026, and it's 9:06 p.m. U.S. Central Time. And my name is Rinaldo J. Aguiar Marcano, and I'm recording this video from my home located at the 2302 Britton Ridge Drive, Katy, Texas 77494, and located 300 feet away from the house of Robert Mueller, who is or was a director of the FBI for several years. So today I'm recording this video to record some information I received. I just came back half an hour ago from picking up messages, and I put them together, and I got some information that the same idea as the last time, right? I haven't verified if this is true, but it's possible that I have a way to do it, right? So my goal by doing this is just recording what I got, and if it turns out to be the case, then it would be validation that nobody can say that I made this up after the fact, after I had discovered it, right? Um, so it's just it's not earth shattering or anything, but it could be important, right? So I'll start by that, right? So I will start by mentioning the things that I received, and then at the end, I'm gonna do a quick recap of the things that have happened over the last, I don't know, probably 5 to 6 days. I haven't recorded one of these videos in a while because I've been busy shortening out this, this series of directories that I'm doing, right? So I've been, as I said in the previous video, I'm occupying all my time on that, right? So that's why I haven't been able to record one of these videos in the last few days. So I'm going to recap what's happened, because a lot of interesting things has happened as I've been doing these books and publishing these books, right? Okay, so let's start by this. Recently, I don't know if people are following, right, what's happening. One of the things that I do is that when I have a question, I post it publicly, right? Because there's no point in me going out to send a message. I mean, if I have a question, I'll ask it on the YouTube channel, and if any of the people that are helping me see these messages and they have a way to help me, then they will reply, right, using the system that I developed. So recently, right after the discovery of the letter, right, and all the implications that I mentioned that could be inferred by the existence of the letter, right, and the account. After that, I got some information, right, about the names of the players, right. But I did not know the date of birth. And that's important because to locate a person, to identify a person, if you have the name and you have the date of birth, it's pretty easy, right? Because there's not many people that will have the same name and the same date of birth. Even if you have only the first name, right? Like how many Rinaldos were born in the same date that I was born, right? So anyhow, I asked that question in YouTube. I posted the question, right, a few days ago. And when I went to pick up the message today, I got an answer. So this is what I got from the informant, from the Venezuelan informant that works with Yostaro Cabello. And, that is basically trying to, give him a coup d'etat, I think, right? But anyhow, this is what I got from him, right? I don't know, I do not know if this is true or not. But so he told me, and by the way, like before I say this, just one thought, right? That for the network, for the people working with Yosdaro and Nelson Lara and those people, think about, right, the implication that this informant knew about that letter. I mean, how many people in your organization knew about that letter? Right? And I got that information. Imagine that. I mean, I imagine, right? Like if you went through the trouble of setting up that account in the Netherlands under a cipher or number account, right? Set up years ago. I imagine it's not something that everybody in Katy would know, right? Or even I don't know how many people in Katy would have access to that information, right? And I got access to that information, so it's something to think about, right? But anyhow, the informant told me that the date that is written in the letter is the date of birth of Andres, the real husband, right? And thinking about that, I mean, I don't know if it's true or not, right? And this is what I was saying at the beginning, that I may have a way not to verify it, right, but to see if it could be, right? Um, uh, but thinking about that possibility, right? If that's true, it would make sense, right? Because like it has to be something, right? If it's the password, and, yeah, and he told me that it's a piece of information that is required to access the money. I mean, that's why it's in that letter, right? On the back of the letter and on the opposite side of the footer if you reverse the page. So it doesn't. So you cannot scan the two things at the same time, right? Um, so it would make sense, right? Why? Well, because it has to be a piece of information that she can recognize quickly, right? And it has to be something that it's not traceable to her personally, right? Because if it was her date of birth, right, and the thing gets discovered somehow, then authorities will have her real date of birth, right? And the letter is in her house, right? So they can't put any of the real information of her in that letter. But it has to be something that she can remember. It has to be something that she can remember and identify quickly, right? Because they cannot risk that she forgets the password and then she cannot access the money, right? So it has to be a date that is imprinted in her brain, right? That's why I thought that it could be the date of birth of the brother, right? Of Daniel Molero or David Molero, like one of them, right? I think that Daniel Molero would be the younger one, the one that would fall in that age group, right? Because the date is 87. In fact, let me show you the letter, right? Because the last time I show it to you on the camera, but I did not. So this is what I'm showing you here is the Google Cloud bucket, Google Cloud Storage bucket, and the name of the bucket is KOL-mobile-2024. It says 2024 because I started this bucket long time ago, but I realize now that it wasn't a good idea to put the year because now we're in 2026, right? It looks like this is old. Anyhow, it's too late to change it, right? So in this storage bucket, there is a folder called court evidence, right? And then I have it categorized by player, right? But in there is a folder for the Moleros, right? And within that, there is a folder about this letter, right, which is the Bel Air Hotel letter. And there's only one file in there, which is basically what I sent this to the IRS already, right? So I sent the letter to the IRS as part of a Form 211 submission. So this thing that you're seeing here is that submission, right? And it has the letter attached. So I want to show you, right? So this is the letter itself. This is the footer that has the bank account. And, at this point, the informant told me that he already has even documentation about the account, right? I haven't gotten it yet, but he has. I mean, this is confirmed, right? This is an account. It's not. This isn't a theory or a hypothesis anymore, right? He confirmed that he got documentation about the account, right? So I'm saying this because if authorities see this, I ask you, please, check this out because this is a real account. And in fact, it's two accounts. It's not one, it's two. Because, redundancy is important for these kind of things, right? But anyhow, the date, the letter, right, is supposedly dated 83. And you can see that here, right? Oh, that's on the front. That's what Nelio wrote. But then the reply to the letter is dated 4 years later. So she replied to the letter, supposedly, right? What they want to portray with the letter is that Nelio wrote on the front and then she replied on the back. But the date that he wrote, right, on the letter is 83, and her reply supposedly is 87, right? So 4 years later, she replied. I mean, it doesn't make sense, right? But that the reason is that that date is really the date of birth of Andres, right? The husband, right? So April 23rd, 1987. No, like when I see this date, right? This is kind of funny, right? Because I could take this let's call it the path of feeling wronged, right? Or how do I say this? Yeah, like I could feel like I was deceived, right? But I choose to see differently, right? It's a choice, right? It's a choice how you say, right? And I choose to see the silver lining on this. The silver lining is that I've been dating a woman that is much younger than I thought, and for all this time, I thought she was my age, but turns out that she's several years younger than me. And I say this because, well, if this is the date of birth of the husband, right? I mean, the husband is younger than my little brother. That means that she is the same age or younger. And I say this because, I mean, this might be cultural, right? This might not be applicable everywhere, and I know this because I grew up in the same place as them, right? When I was a kid, I heard of the name Moleros, but I didn't really met them because they were much younger than me. I mean, when I was finishing high school, I think they were like entering high school, something like that, right? I never really met them, so I don't. But my little sister and my little brother went to school with some of them, right? And they're like 6 or 7 siblings. So But anyhow, it was customary, right, in that region of the country that when if you went to high school, you would go out with people of your same age, right? That were in the same grade as you, or maybe a grade older, right? But more than that, it was kind of frowned upon, right? So I imagine that if this is the husband, she has to be the same. Her real year of birth must be 87 or 88 or 86, right? But it has to be close, right? Which would put her at around the age of my little brother, right? So the silver lining is that I've been dating a woman that is probably, right, if this is true, much younger than when I thought, right? Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Like after you see it, right? I mean, after you see how the thing works, you look back and then you start remembering things that kind of didn't make sense to you at some point, right? Over the years, but now they make sense, right? So I think this could be true, right? That this is the year. I mean, this could be the date of birth of Andres, and she must be, in the same age group at least, right? It's amazing. Anyhow, so the reason I say why I may have a way to verify this is because, remember, I have all the family photos that were left in my house and are now my property, right? Because they're in my house. They were abandoned in my house. And I scanned them, like I ingested all those photos into the pipeline, right? I have like 500, 600 photos, right? Of, all these family albums of before my time, right? So in those photos, there's metadata, right? When were the photos taken? So all I have to do is write a simple Python script to find the photos that fall on April 23rd of any year, right? To see if there is a birthday, right? I don't know. It's just something that occurs to me that could work, right? The other thing that could work is looking. I also ingested all my messages, right? All my text messages for the last, I don't know, 6 years, right? So all I have to do is write a Python script that looks through my messages for messages on April 23rd to see if she told me that she was going out with friends or things like that, right? Because I imagine that if it's his birthday, she may want to spend the birthday with him, right? Um, well, I don't know how it works, right, in this organization. Like maybe they have a TTP to not do that. I don't know, right? But maybe they made a mistake, right? So maybe there is a pattern of, this particular date, she going out with her friends, right? So I mean, that could also be could be a way. But what I'm going to do for sure, I'm going to upload all those photos to this folder, right? Just in case, if something happens to me, authorities can get the pictures, right? And remember, this is a folder that has the retention settings set up to 7 years, so nothing can be deleted from this folder. So once I put them in there, they cannot be deleted. And I'm going to put them in there after this demo. So it could be another way. So I guess the status at this point is that at this point I know his first name is Andres, and his date of birth is April 23rd, 1987. Right? With those two numbers, I'm pretty sure I can find him, right? And I already, have people trying to find him, just so you know. Yes. Anyhow, so that's one thing, right? Well, and here's the letter. And here you can see, right, how this letter, I mean, the width of the letter is the width is letter, like letter size. It's a 8.5 inches wide, right? But the length is like 12 inches. It's more than letter. And I mentioned this before. This is a feature, so the footer doesn't get a scan. So that's why I had to scan it in 3 different passes, right? Like you see, to get the footer on this part, I had to cut off the header, right? You see how the logo of the hotel is cut off. And then if you go down, to get the upper part, you will see the footer is cut down, right? And it's cut off exactly where the footer starts, right? This is an amazing piece of engineering, right? Because what they did was to think about how to structure the size of the letter, the paper, to make it impossible to scan it, right? In a way that it's impossible to get the bank account number. However you do it, right? You have to do it in 4 steps. And look, when you scan this, like if you want to scan the footer, you have to position the page offset, right? And if you do that, then you will miss the password, right? The date of birth of Andres, right? Which is necessary to access the money. So it's an amazing piece of engineering. Because it uses, how do I say this? Like I don't know how to put it into words. But as an engineer, I see this and I see beauty in this design. Like I see, that somebody really put effort into thinking how to do this. Well, I don't know, but maybe this is something that developed over the years, right? By experience, it could be. I don't know. But if this was something designed by a person, that person is a genius, right? There's somebody that must be recognized for this, right? Amazing. Yes, and you have here also the Form 211 with a list of people. Some of them, I think, even have social security numbers and everything. Right? So it's all in there. Right. So that's one thing that happened. Okay. So the second thing that happened was in the previous session that I recorded, right, when I got that information about the letter, I mentioned about the books that the directories that I was designing, right? And at that point, I had something like 6. Well, at this point, I have 20 something, right? It exploded. I industrialized the production of these books. And these are books that are produced algorithmically. Like all these directories are produced algorithmically without edits. I'm not taking an editorial role in this, right? Like they are just produced by the data that got leaked by the Venezuelan intelligence services on 2024. And using my proprietary technology to rank the places, right? So as I was doing this, right, I started, of course, and remember, I have this data for more than a year at this point, right? And I've been, during all this year, trying to get this information to the authorities through different channels, but Diosdado Cabello always blocks me, right? He blocks the IRS reports, or like, what he did with, what's his name? Uh, Enrique Morales, what's his name, right? The ICE agent, and Agent Cody, all those ruses, right? But I have this data already computed, right? And I've had it for over a year, right? So I started producing the directories, right? And I started producing them by cities, right? And posting them in Amazon. And I was surprised to see that Amazon was letting me publish the books. I mean, because this is the most sensitive information. Imagine, like, this is basically a database of agents of this massive espionage machine, right? And I know they control Amazon like a puppet, right? So, I was expecting that they would block the books, but they didn't, right? At the beginning, right? So I'm just telling you the story of how the censorship evolved over the last week, okay? Because it's been a saga on itself. Maybe let me go to Amazon, right? So if you look for RJ, so my name, and then XisList, you'll see the books, right? So these are these red books. I call them the red pages, kind of a reference to the yellow pages, and red because the Communist Party of China, and the PSUV, right? The Partido Socialista Unido de Venezuela, right? Right. So in this series that you see here, right, there's 16 books. Now, they were letting me publish the books, right? To be honest, I feel weird say letting me publish, because it feels like it's a privilege, right? I mean, when I say it that way, which shouldn't be, right? Supposedly there's freedom of speech, right? And I should be able to, I mean, as long as I'm not publishing anything that is a criminal, right? I mean, there's certain type of publications that would be a crime to publish them, right? Like, for example, you cannot, and here I don't know the details, but you cannot, for example, publish a manual on how to commit a mass murder, right? Like that's illegal, right? But this is a directory of addresses, right, with numbers. There's nothing illegal about this, right? But still, I have to say that they were letting me publish it, right? But anyhow, right, after a couple of days, I figured out that they weren't really letting me publish them, right? So when I logged into my KDP account, the books appeared in there, and some of them would be listed in this page. If you search for them, right, you would see like 5 or 6 books. And the only ones that you would see were like Beijing, Caracas, I mean, the cities that they control, that they have fully under control because they feel safe in those cities, right? But the other books, like, for example, the one about Switzerland, right? Or there's one about the financial centers. Switzerland, there's one about the Bahamas and the Dominican Republic. There's one about Houston. There's one about Austin, Texas. Those books did not appear in the search results. Like, they were basically gone. Like, you could not find them. And if I logged into my KDP account, I could see them, like they appeared as published, right? And if you go, I cannot do that here because I don't have the account open here, but if I log into KDP, what I see is the list of books that I have published, and each book has a link. If I click on the link, it goes to Amazon, and I can see the listing in the Amazon website, even if the book is not findable or searchable through the search in Amazon, right? So I realized that what they were doing is that the links were intentionally broken. So I mean, the books appeared in my KDP account, but if I click on the link, the page was a broken link. It said 404, we cannot find this page, right? So effectively, the books were not published, right? They appeared to be published to me, but the links didn't work, right? And they did this with a specific set of books. It wasn't with every book. It was with the book about the Dominican Republic, Houston, Austin, Seattle, San Francisco, Toronto, Ontario, and Switzerland and Verona. And for people that are not familiar, that area is important because it's a corridor, right? And I know this because I know several agents of this network that have gone to Verona and then crossed by land to Switzerland. So I think the modus operandi is that they go through Italy, they go to Verona, cross to Switzerland, make a deposit or a withdrawal, and then come back to Italy, right? And I say this because I've known more than one person, multiple people that, for some reason, always do this trip to go to Italy, Verona, and then they go to this ski resort in Switzerland that is just crossing the border. It always was strange to me why all these people that I knew always made this exact same trip, right? I mean, it sounded to me like a statistical anomaly. Because, I mean, what are the chances, right? That all these people that are disconnected to each other, it's like, to give another example, right? It's that the trip to Bogota. I know multiple people that I know for a fact that are agents that have been actively working to steal my code that have made trips to Bogota, right? Cases in example, Marcos Castillo and Ana Codallo, right? The two of them went from Houston to Bogota because they went there to pick up the crypto payments, right? I mean, the anomaly lies in that two people that supposedly are completely disconnected from each other, that don't even know each other, make the exact same trip, right? After an important event of intellectual property theft has happened. That's the concerning part. So anyhow, that Verona, Switzerland corridor, it's an important pathway to move money. The other one that I've also seen consistently, case in example, Ramon Sanchez from New Jersey, is Miami going by boat to the Bahamas, right? The same thing, right? People that I've seen firsthand working on these projects that they have that make these repeated trips in this way, right? So anyhow, when I published the book about Verona, Italy, and Switzerland, which I put them together in the same book precisely because of this reason, right? They blocked the book in this way, right? It wasn't obvious to me that the book was blocked, but if you click on the link would not open, okay? So I was in that state in which I was working on publishing the books, but the books weren't really published. I mean, some of them were not really published, right? But it all escalated when I published the book about the Dominican Republic. That's when everything went cahoots, right? At that point, they blocked my Amazon account. Blocked, completely blocked. Like, I cannot publish any. I got an email from Amazon, KDP, saying your account has been suspended. I think they even took all the books offline, right, for like 2 days because I published that book. Now, that book is important. And if when people later, I'm not going to do this here, but when people later realize the size of this problem, you will see that the amount of addresses that are marked with high scores in the Dominican Republic is abnormally high. I mean, it has more addresses than Houston and Austin and Dallas combined. And the Dominican Republic is a small island, right? The reason for that is because it's a financial center. And it's a place where many of the people from the PSUV, from the political party that is in power in Venezuela, have luxury properties. So, the way and I'm telling you this because I was born in that country. I know the environment, right? So what they do is that, they do all these things in Venezuela, but then they go and buy luxury properties in Dominican Republic, and they maintain 2 residences, right? So they really live in Dominican Republic, and then they come back to work on Venezuela to do whatever they have to do, right? So the moment I published that book, they blocked my account, and I could not publish the book. So what I did, because I'm used to this dynamic, like this is not the first time that they blocked me, right? They've been doing this for years. So, of course, what I did was to work around it, right? So I went to a service, a printing company, that I can be my own, because, Amazon is kind of a weird situation, right, with the books, because, I mean, if you publish in the KDP platform, because on one side, they are the platforms that are selling the books, printing the books, and selling the books, but also they kind of work as a publisher. I mean, they have editorial guidelines and they can apply censorship in a way, right? Like if they decide that your book is not meeting their guidelines, they can decide to not publish the book. And this is in the terms and conditions of use, terms of services, and if you have to agree to those to be able to publish a book with them, right? So in a way, this gives them editorial powers, right, over your content. So what I did, I'm not going to start fighting with Amazon over the book, right? I mean, I don't have time for that. So what I did, I went to a company that is really a printing service. You can, print any book you want. Of course, because they don't have any editorial responsibility for the book, you have the editorial power and also the editorial responsibility. But that's fine, right? So I moved the books to Lulu.com. That's the company that now is printing my books. And I started moving all the books one by one, the 16 books that I had, right? But I left the Dominican Republic one to the end to see what happened, right? To see if they had the power to block me in Lulu as well. So in Lulu, the process is a little bit different, right? So you upload the content, you upload the book, and then to be able to really publish it, you have to order a copy of the book, and then you have to approve it after you order, the copy, right? It's not like in Amazon. In Amazon, you can upload the book, and it just gets published, right? And then they review it, and if they find something wrong, they will unpublish it or send it back or whatever, right? But in Lulu.com, because you are the editor, right? They put this mandatory step that you have to order a copy, review it, and then approve it. Until you do that, the book is not really published. So when I get to the point, I'm at the book 17th at this point, right, in Lulu. When I get to the point that I'm going to publish the Dominican Republic book, and I'm going to order the mandatory copy that I need to order to be able to approve it, the transaction gets flagged as fraudulent from my credit card because I have to pay for the book, right? To order the book in Lulu, so I can approve that I saw the content printed, I have to pay for the book. And to pay for the book, I need a credit card. And the Communist Party of China controls the credit card, right? So what they did, they blocked the transaction, right? I could not pay for the book. And if I cannot pay for the book, I cannot publish. I can publish it, but I cannot really approve it. And if I can approve it, it doesn't go live, right? So again, it's a way of censorship. They were applying censorship to the book using the control they have over the credit card company, right? So what I did, I sent a letter to Chase, right? And I told them point blank, listen, I'm trying to do this transaction in Lulu. It's only $40, right? It's not a multi-$1,000 transaction. It's only $40, and it's a printing service. I mean, this is a low-risk transaction. It's not electronics. It's not, I'm not buying pharmaceuticals. It's a book, right? And I went further to explain in the letter that I'm printing this book to send it to the IRS as part of a formal submission of a Form 211, which is a whistleblower form. And I am a whistleblower in this context. And I explained to them that blocking the transactions as fraudulent is a way of interfering with my communication with the IRS in this context. Right? And I asked them to forward that letter to their legal department because, if it's a customer service person that reads this, maybe they can say the person didn't understand what I'm saying, right? But any lawyer that reads this understands that this is a very serious thing, right? To block a credit card transaction so you cannot report a criminal activity to the federal government. So anyhow, after I sent that letter, the transaction went on. Like, it wasn't marked as fraud anymore. I was able to order the book and approve it, right? But it's really amazing to see the level of control that these people have over, to censor information, right? And to suppress it, even in a printed book, in these indirect ways, right? But anyhow, so the state now is that the books are in Lulu.com, and this is funny. So of course, because and I think I mentioned this before, right? So one of the things that they do with the agents, it's in the books. Like what I'm going to say, I'm going to give you the short version, but one of the important functions of the agents is feedback gathering. And what that means is that they will expose the target. So they will create a synthetic situation that will expose the target to stress, psychological stress. And while they expose the target to psychological stress, they will have an agent next to the target to see the reaction, right? Because they want to understand what is that hurts. Why? Well, because that once they understand it, they can amplify it, right? And they can do it 10, 20, 100 times worse, right? In the future to introduce more psychological stress. So for them, it's important to understand where it hurts. So of course, I learned about that, right? And I know how it works, and I also do it to them. So once I saw what hurts, right, that the director is what hurts, like the other books that I've been published that are like nonfiction, that they don't care about that, right? Because I imagine, right, they can always say this is fiction or whatever, right? Or they are counting that people are not going to read a novel, right? But the directory with the addresses and the scores, these did hurt, right? And especially the one about the Dominican Republic. So I understood, right? I understood, right, that I'm on the right track. Well, now that I'm telling you this, let me, to give an idea how they employ the feedback gathering, right? So last year, right, when I started in 2025, actually 2024, this was at the end of 2024, right after I got the Geo Index, I started reporting them to the IRS. So one of the things that they did is that they sent me a letter from the IRS in response to my Form 211, right, submission. And the letter, if you read it, I have it saved somewhere, but you know, I'll give you the short version. But if you read that letter, it's really discouraging. Like, it's a letter that, I mean, if you're a whistleblower and you read this letter, you will not want to report anybody to the IRS ever in your life again. I mean, the letter basically says, you know, this is, I can't recall the wording right now, right? But I'm going to give you the general idea of what the letter says. The letter says something like, you know, well, thank you for your submission to the IRS. We take these matters very seriously, blah, blah, blah. But we want to tell you that this is a very lengthy process. This is going to take several years. And the chances of success are very, very small, like something like that, right? So, I mean, if you read the language of the letter, it's something designed to discourage you. I mean, and, you know, think about it, right? An office, which is supposed the whistleblower office, right? Supposedly, right? I mean, their whole business and their whole reasons for existence is to receive these claims and process them, right? And hopefully recover money that will end up going to the government and save money to the taxpayers, right? To people that are legitimately paying taxes. So how can they, being this their purpose, send such a discouraging letter? I mean, this is crazy to me. Of course, I understand. This is not the real letter, right? It's that they have somebody in the enforcement department of the whistleblower office designed this custom letter to discourage me, right? But I'm telling you this because when they sent me this letter, they put Penelope next to me, right? And she opened the letter. Like, you know, I don't know if it was Penelope. I don't know. It was somebody, right? And then they were sitting next to me as I was reading the letter, like to see my reaction, like to see if I was getting discouraged by the wording or not, right? So something like that. So when I see the reaction, I understand that this is where it hurts, okay? So I said, well, if this is what it hurts, if this is where it hurts, what I have to do is apply maximum pressure here. So I took it to the next level, and I sat down and thought about this for like an hour on how to make this even better, right? And I came up with a good way. So these books, until this point, I'm just giving you the chronological evolution of this project, right? Until this point, the books are organized by cities, and you can see that here, right? So you have, for example, Beijing is the first book, the second book is Moscow, the third book is Caracas, you know, and I have 16 books, right? But they are by city. The problem with this is that, I mean, it has a good thing, which is that it's very local, right? So if you live imagine that you are a political opponent of the Communist Party of China in Beijing, right? I don't know if they still exist, because after so many years of this, maybe they are already extinct. I don't know, right? But if one of them exists, if there's a real opponent still, they see this and they will understand what's happening, right? Locally in their area. But the weakness is that precisely that is local, right? There's no way to see the overall picture because you will have to read and consume the 16 books or the 50 books, how many books I produce, right? So I thought about this and I said, well, what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a book that has in one book the entire planet. Well, but it would be a pretty damn, big book, right? It would be 20,000 pages. I can't do that, right? And nobody would read that. It would be unmanageable, right? So what I did, well, I can apply the 2% principle that I've learned from them. What I have to do is for each one of these important geographical areas that are important for them, I'm going to pick the top 2% of properties by score. So these are effectively the people that are managing the place, right? That are managing that geographical area. So that way, I don't have to print 20,000 pages, right? Because I can compress a single area, I can summarize it, and I can give you the list of the top people in that area. So imagine that the 2% of agents in, I don't know, Caracas, right? Or Katy. So in zip code 77494, where I am, there's 16,000 properties. The 2% of that is only 300 properties, right? So if I give you the list of the 300 most important people, with that, effectively, you can disarm the network here. Because if you get these 300 people, the network cannot function, right? And if I repeat that process across, so say 300 people, I can fit 300 people in something like, I think at this point, I have it something like, I think around 70 lines per page, because I print the lines very small, right? So 300 would be something like 5 pages, right? So I can put a zip code, I mean, the top people, the top 2% of a zip code like Katy, which is a big hub, in about 5 pages, right? So with 800 pages that I can fit in this book in Lulu, and that's the other thing, Amazon only let you put 580 pages in a book. Lulu gives you 800 pages. So I can really put like a lot of 75,000 addresses, I think I can fit in that book in Lulu. In Amazon, I could only fit 45,000. Anyhow, you see the math, right? So if I can put a zip code like Katy, which is a big hub, in 5 pages, in 800 pages, I can fit 120, 140 hubs, right? And this is exactly what I did, right? So I created these global directories that are split by country, right? And at this point, it ended up being 2 volumes only of almost 800 pages each one. So it's around 1,600 pages. But you have in here the top people around the world, right? In the top areas that they care about. Of course, there are still countries that I did not put into the books, but I'll put them, right? I'll add them. But this will result into a 3rd volume being added, because now we're going to go over the 800 pages limit, right? But this was a tremendous, I mean, with this that I did in these 2 volumes, I got probably like 60% of the important areas, okay? And these books are in lulu.com. Now, interestingly, at this point, when I did this, I was still under the censorship in Amazon. I mean, my account was blocked, the books were disappeared, but I published this directory in Lulu, right? After I did that, the Amazon account came back. I got an email from Amazon saying, hey, we thought about this, we'd reconsider. I mean, I didn't even ask them to reconsider. To be honest, I hadn't seen the suspension email. I saw it today. So my account in Amazon was suspended for the last 2 days and I didn't know. But after I published the directory, those 2 books I'm referring to in lulu.com, Amazon proactively retracted their own suspension. And I think, I mean, this is me speculating, right? I don't have a way to prove this, but I think it's because they think I'm going to add that book to Amazon. I'm not going to do that, ever. The reason why they want me to add the book to Amazon is because they want me to upload the digital file of the directory so they have it, right? They don't have the digital file. Well, I mean, I think they got it from Lulu. And I know that because, I mean, they have somebody at Lulu already. I know that because the informant told me things that they are doing after they saw the directories. So they already saw the directories, right? And that means that they have somebody at Lulu. Why? Well, because in Lulu, the book is only printable, and it takes 3 to 5 days to print. So if you order the book, it takes 3 days for it to ship, minimum, right? and I published it yesterday. In fact, I published it this morning. It was like at 2 a.m. this morning. So it's impossible that they already ordered it. And in fact, if I already checked in my orders page, and I don't have any orders for these books because I just published them today, right? So they haven't ordered the books. So there's no way that they took the actions that the informant told me. I mean, there's no explanation how they got the book, how they got the content, right? They have to have somebody at Lulu that took the digital file and gave it to them. But even, right, like in that circumstances, they cannot explain how they got the file, right? So what they want me to do is to upload the book to Amazon, right? So they get the file in a legitimate way, right? Legitimate, I mean, more legitimate, right? Like, I guess. And the reason why they want the file is because they want to be able to manipulate it, right? And to create information poisoning, as I described in the previous demo. So that's the reason why they reactivated my account and published all the books that were before. These books were before censored. Like half of these books didn't appear in the search results, and now they appear, right? And even the Dominican Republic, I checked it this morning, and it opened. Before it wasn't opening at all. Let me see if I can find it. Okay, so this is the one about the Dominican Republic, right? Before, it didn't show up in search results, and if I clicked on it from my KDP account, it did not open, right? I mean, the link up, it was like it was published, but if I tried to open it, it gave 404. But now, I checked this morning and it opens, right? So they basically rolled back the censorship, but I think it's a move for they want me to publish the directories in Amazon, because that way they can get the information faster, right? I think that's the motivation, right? That they think I'm going to publish those directories here, and every time I update the books, I'm going to update them here, so that way they will get the latest version of the directory easily. That's not going to happen. They're going to have to keep stealing it through Lulu, which is dangerous, right? Because the FBI could be watching Lulu, right? I imagine. And if they're not, I would recommend that it could be a good way to catch them red-handed, right? Because they're going to be pulling every time, and I'm going to update that book daily. So they're going to be pulling that from Lulu daily, okay? So it's just a tip. I mean, knowing them, they can't resist, right? They have to do it. So it could be. Yeah. So anyhow, so what I did, the other thing I did, I created a domain. It's called XisList, right? XisList.org. It's like a pawn on Craigslist, right? Which is really owned by the Communist Party of China. So if you go to that domain, you will land in this page, which is really the same Looker dashboard that has the cases of how the Communist Party of China is targeting American children. It's the same dashboard, but it takes you directly to the page of the directories, right? So these ones on the top are the two directories, the two volumes that I described, that has the countries organized. The first volume is A to T, right? So Afghanistan to I can't recall what is the country, but all the countries from A to T. And the second volume has countries that start with U to Z. And let me show you the cover, right? This photo over here is a photo of me with the president of the Dominican Republic, Leonel Fernandez, and Nelson Lara, who is a key player in the PSUV, in this political party that is in power in Venezuela, which is the same that I'm mentioning here in the right in the title of the book. And the reason why I picked this photo is because I know that they care about the Dominican Republic, right? Because that's where the people from the PSUV have their money stored. Probably, right? I mean, it seems logical to me. And I'm saying that because I was born in that country. I mean, in Venezuela, right? So I think, right, this how do I frame this? My hope is that even the existence of this photo lends credibility to what I'm saying. Because, I mean, like, I don't know, like, I don't know, what's the experience of other people, right? But through all my adult life, and, I've known, through the work that I've been doing at all these tech companies, I've known pretty high level individuals, but I've never in my life met with the president, ever, until Nelson Lara took me to give a demo in person to President Leonel Fernandez in New York. And this is where that photo was taken, right? So I guess what I'm trying to say is that I hope that this lends some credibility to what I'm saying. Because, I mean, if Nelson Lara put me in this situation to talk to this president, right, it's because of something. Right? These things don't happen randomly. It's not easy to get a meeting with the president to give him a demo of a technology that you developed, which is the same technology that I'm using to rank this database that got leaked by the Venezuelan intelligence, which is the employer of Nelson Lara. Right? I mean, it's two and two together, right? Anyhow, so this is the cover of the book. And if you click on that link, it will take you to the Lulu store where you can purchase a book. Right? So this is what I was telling you, that it usually takes 3 to 5 business days. So it's impossible that they already purchased the book. And they haven't, because I would see it in the orders, right? I have access to see not who, but how many books were purchased. And, this book hasn't been purchased, right? But the informant told me things today that let me see that they're taking already actions. They already know what the book says, right? And how do they know it? If, they haven't bought it and it's not published in Amazon. So that means that they have some way to get it, of getting it from Lulu. But anyhow, so in this page, so again, if you go to XisList.org, you have those two on the top, which are the top 2%. So these two on the top are basically by country and region, and in each region is the top 2% addresses. And below that, you have individual cities, right? So here you can see what I'm telling you, what I was telling you about the Dominican Republic, right? So you can see in Austin, and Austin is a metropolitan area. It's a political capital of Texas, right? And they only have, I say only, but they have 19,000 properties in there, right? It's a lot of properties, don't get me wrong. But if you take into account the political power, the geopolitical importance of the area within the US, right? I guess the political capital that is in that area, right? And you put that in context with the number 19 properties that they invested into placing there versus 38,000 in the Dominican Republic. It's double. So in the Dominican Republic, it's a small island, right, in the Caribbean. So they have double the number of properties indexed in this database in the Dominican Republic than if you compare it with Austin. And if you compare it with Houston, it's the same. In Houston, they have 24,000. And in the Bahamas, they have, and this is just looking at the number, right? And if you look at the scores in the Bahamas are super high. And usually what I see statistically is that the score correlate with the income, with the GDP of the area, right? I guess it's a longer conversation, right? And I don't want to get into this in this demo, but I think it's based in economics, right? Like when I say you, I mean them, right? Logically, will want to pay people as little as they can, right? So if they are deploying agents in a third world country where the average income is very low, they will pay people more than the rest of the population, but they will pay them less than they would pay an agent in the US, right? But if you by that logic, the scores that you would expect to see in the Dominican Republic should be low, because the average income per capita in the Dominican Republic is low. I mean, it's not a first world country, right? And I'm not saying this is in um, in a negative way. I'm not criticizing the Dominican Republic, right? It's a country that is suffering, right, economically, and I know that because I've been there, right, and I've seen the poverty in that country with my own eyes. But yet, the scores that are represented in this database, in this properties marked in the index of the Venezuelan intelligence, are higher than you would expect, given the per capita income of that country. And remember that these scores correlate with the crypto payments, right, that they issue to the agents. So I mean, it explains many things, right? But that's why they could not tolerate that book being published, because it directly touches the financial interests of the key players of the political party that is in power in Venezuela. So they can't let that book, be published, right? That's why they had to take action. But anyhow, here you have all the other cities that I published so far, right? I'm gonna just read them so you have an idea. Austin, Houston, Dallas, Calgary, the Dominican Republic, the Bahamas, Panama. Panama, it's amazing. It's 108,000. I mean, it's mind-blowing. I mean, it's 3 times Dominican Republic. So Panama is one of the biggest operations, financially speaking, of them, right? That book also got censored by Amazon, right? In the way that I described before. The link was broken. And the other one that is amazing, that is not in this list, is Ohio. Ohio is like the capital of espionage in the US. I thought it was Katy, but I was wrong. It's Ohio. It's more than 100,000 properties. So that book is coming soon, right? Yeah, and I don't know. Like this is a hypothesis, right? I haven't really tested, and I'm careful. I don't. Sometimes I have ideas of things that could be, and I don't say them until I test them, right? Because I don't want to say anything that is not accurate. But I really don't have the time to test this right now because I have a bunch of things to do. So I'm going to say it in case anybody is interested in working in this project. But a hypothesis I have, and this is just a hypothesis, I haven't tested it, I haven't validated. But a hypothesis I have is that they may have split the areas in the US by, how do I say this? Sort of a demographic targeting, right? So the idea is the Venezuelans take Katy and Houston, the Russians take Ohio, and the Chinese take the West Coast, right? And I'm saying this based on observation, right? I've lived in the West Coast, I lived in the East Coast, I lived in Katy, and I see that demographic in all these places. And of course, they always move me to places that they control, right? But in all these places, there's always one demography that is dominant over the others. Like there's more Chinese citizens in the West Coast, in California, for example, than Venezuelans, right? Or Latinos in general. Latinos in the Silicon Valley area, I'm talking about the Silicon Valley area, right, are a minority. And you could, I mean, I always explain it away by, sociocultural and economic reasons, right? Well, it's an area that is very expensive, and it's not easy for a person that was born in South America to be able to afford a house in San Francisco, right? Which might be, I don't know, right? But now thinking about this, right? When I've been researching this for the last years, 2 years or 3 years after, all this time that I've been doing this, when I encounter players in Ohio, they always seem to be, white, right? Like they could be Russians or Eastern Europeans, or descendants of Eastern Europeans, right? And for example, in Katy, this area, the percentage of population that are directly Venezuelans or descendants of Venezuelans, it's, I don't know, 70% of the population, right? This area is dominated by that. So it could be that they split the areas in that way. But I don't know, right? I think it would require a team of statisticians that have access to this data from the census to understand, if this could be the case. But anyhow, Ohio, it's a big hub. It's 108,000, I think, is the number, the last number I saw. So, and if you put that in context, right, it would be more properties than Austin, Houston, Dallas, and Calgary combined. So I don't know. And that explains why all these important companies in the healthcare area, like, Definitive Healthcare and, all these companies, right, are in that area. So I don't know. It's an interesting project. I'm just mentioning in case there's anybody. The data is public, it's available. So if anybody has curiosity and time to research this thing with the census data that is also public, it could be, right. It could be an interesting project. So yes, so continuing with the list, you have Beijing, you have Tokyo and Taipei, Caracas, Moscow, Tehran, Seattle, Washington, Switzerland, and Verona. So this is the book that I was telling you that has that financial corridor that I know many people that have done that trip, that go to Verona for tourism, and then they cross by land to Switzerland. So this is that book, right? It has the properties, right? So it could be an interesting project to see these people, whether they have visited these addresses, right? These specific addresses that are marked in this book, right? That would be kind of the smoking gun, and could lead to understanding of what it is that they do in those addresses, right? Exactly. Toronto, it's a super big hub, right? 71,000 properties, right? So it's almost like Ohio. I mean, if you put that in context, right, like with Silicon Valley, right? So the west part of Silicon Valley is 16,000 properties, and this is an area that is very important because everything they do is based on technology, right? And the east part of Silicon Valley is 50,000. So if you sum them up, is 66,000. But Toronto has more than that, right? I mean, Afghanistan, 86,000. Kiev, Ukraine, 18,000. Monaco and Warsaw, 14,000. Fort Lauderdale, 15,000. Tampa, Florida is another super big hub, 85,000. And this is one of the ones that is dominated by Venezuelans, right? The demographics here, like the population is dominated by Venezuelans. The same with Orlando, Florida, almost 60,000. You also have San Francisco, Boston, France. So I mean, the France is not a city, right? It's not consistent, but it's because for technical reasons I put it into a single book. But there's more. These are not. I want to make the disclaimer that this doesn't mean that there's not more properties. These are the ones that I reverse geocoded. And this is a process that costs money. Like that's why I could not reverse your code the entire planet, because it would cost something like $3 million to give you an idea of the price of this. So to reverse your code these addresses, I think I spent probably like $400,000. And I mean, there's more. I haven't. There's more that I mean, with this $400,000, more or less. I don't quote me on the number, right? I might be wrong. Could be a little bit less than that. Could be a little bit more. I don't know. But it's in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? Like it wasn't $5,000. But anyhow, for that, whatever that amount of money was, I got more addresses that are not here yet. It's just that I'm doing this process of creating these books, right? Compiling them into the books. But I have more addresses that I haven't published yet, right? But even if I publish them all, there are gonna be more addresses that I haven't reverse geocoded yet, because I didn't have the money to spend $3 million in reverse geocoding all the addresses. But this is a good I guess entry point to give you an idea of the size of this problem, right? If with the limited resources that I have and the money that I could spend doing this, I could reverse geocode all these hundreds of thousands of addresses. Imagine what the FBI could do, right, with unlimited resources. So I don't know. It's a very exciting thought. Anyhow, yeah. So I think it's a good point to end this demo. I just wanted to give you a chronological breakdown on how the situation escalated with the censorship when I started publishing these directories, right? Which is, to me, it's a positive signal of confirmation that I'm exactly on the right track. And of course, that's the track I'm going to continue to pursue. Okay. So, well, I thank you so much for your time, and I'll see you on the next one.